You ever worked a night shift so quiet, it almost felt like the building itself was asleep? That's how Clara felt that night. It was a little past midnight, the kind of hour where even time feels tired. The hospital corridors stretched endlessly under the white fluorescent lights, buzzing softly, reflecting off the polished floors. Every sound echoed. A rolling gurney somewhere far away, the rhythmic beeping of heart monitors, the faint tap of her own shoes. Clara James, 29 years old, was used to the graveyard shift. She'd done it for years. But tonight, something felt off. Maybe it was the air, cold, almost damp, with the faint smell of rust and disinfectant. Or maybe it was the assignment she'd been given. To retrieve some old patient files from the basement archives, a part of the hospital that hadn't been touched in years. Her supervisor handed her a small note. Basement files, room B13. Be careful, elevator's shaky. Pause. Room B13. Even the number made her uneasy. Still, Clara wasn't the type to spook easily. She grabbed her clipboard, pushed the elevator button, and waited. As the doors opened, the lights inside flickered weakly, the kind of flicker that makes your stomach twist for no reason. She stepped in. The elevator doors closed with a long metallic sigh, and the hum of descent began. Soft metallic rumble sound effect. The deeper she went, the colder the air became. The digital floor numbers blinked. 2, 1, B1, then flickered out. When the doors finally slid open, a stale draft brushed her face. It smelled like mildew and old paper. The lights down there were dim, buzzing in long, uneven intervals. The basement stretched out ahead, a maze of narrow hallways and metal shelves stacked with dusty files. Music shifts slightly darker. Clara started walking, her footsteps echoing softly. Somewhere in the distance, something dripped steadily. Water maybe, or something else. She told herself it was just another errand. But then, she heard it. Footsteps. Soft, deliberate, coming from the far end of the hall. "Hello?" she called out. "Anyone down here?" No answer. She laughed nervously. "Probably the janitor," she whispered to herself, brushing it off. But as she rounded the corner, the footsteps stopped. Instantly. Now it was silent. Only her breathing. Her flashlight beam cut across rows of old shelves until it landed on a stack of folders spilled across the floor. She knelt down to pick them up. Thick, yellowed papers, labels faded with age. Most were dated 1986. But one folder caught her attention. The name on the tag was written in old blue ink, Clara James. Her hand froze. That couldn't be right. She hadn't even been born in 1986. She flipped the folder open. Inside were a few typed medical reports, blood work, surgery notes, and then a patient record form. Under date of birth, it said, April 7, 1986. Under date of death, May 12, 1986. And under cause, respiratory failure, unknown origin. Her mouth went dry. She stepped back, heart hammering. This had to be some kind of mix-up, right? Someone with the same name? She pulled out her phone to call upstairs. But there was no signal. No bars, no Wi-Fi, nothing. Soft, rhythmic thudding sound. Distant breathing fades in. Then she heard it again. Not footsteps this time. Breathing. Shallow, raspy, like someone struggling through an oxygen mask. She turned around, shining her light across the shelves. Nothing. But the sound grew louder, closer. And then she noticed something she hadn't seen before. A curtain hanging in the far corner of the room. Thick, stained, moving slightly like it was being disturbed from behind. There shouldn't have been a curtain there. Her voice trembled. "Hello? Do you need help?" No response. Just the steady creak of an old hospital bed behind it. Curiosity, or maybe instinct, pulled her closer. Her flashlight beam quivered against the curtain fabric as she reached out. A chart hung at the foot of the bed. She leaned in to read it and froze. It said, Patient. Unknown female, DOA. Initials, CJ. Admitted. May 12, 1986. Her breath hitched. That was the same date from the file she'd just found. The air around her felt heavy, pressing against her chest. Her hand shook as she grabbed the curtain edge. Long pause. She pulled it open. Under the harsh white light of her flashlight lay a hospital bed. A figure was on it, covered by a thin white sheet. For a moment it didn't move. Then the chest rose. The body was breathing. Clara staggered back, her flashlight clattering to the floor. The sheet shifted, and as it slid off the face, she saw herself. Same face, same scar above the brow. Eyes half open, staring blankly at the ceiling. Her mouth slightly parted, like she just exhaled her last breath. Clara's scream echoed off the concrete walls. The lights above began to flicker violently. Every bulb popped in sequence. Pop, 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 plunging the hallway into strobing chaos. Her reflection, or whatever it was, sat up slowly on the bed. And when its head turned toward her, its mouth moved. But instead of a voice, the room filled with the sound of that same raspy breathing. It was like hearing her own body try to speak from inside a coffin. Clara ran. She sprinted toward the elevator, her footsteps slamming against the tile. Behind her, the breathing turned into choked gasps. Louder, closer. She pressed the elevator button again and again, but the doors wouldn't open. Through the flickering lights, she could see the reflection of that pale face behind her in the elevator door. And then everything went dark. Music fades low, tense silence. The next morning, the staff found the elevator doors jammed halfway open. The panel showed the elevator stuck between B1 and ground floor. Inside, there was nothing, just her clipboard and flashlight, both smeared with fingerprints. The last CCTV footage showed her entering the elevator at 12:47 a.m. The doors closed, but they never opened again. Maintenance swore they could hear movement in the shaft for days after. And sometimes, on the night shift, nurses reported strange noises coming from the basement, like a bed creaking and someone breathing very softly. Pause. If you've made it this far, I dare you to go check your hospital basement. But before you do, make sure you subscribe because the next story is even darker. Music swells and fades out. You ever been somewhere so empty, it almost doesn't feel real? That's what nights on Route 9 were like. Just endless black highway, one broken neon sign, and the hum of the refrigerators inside a lonely gas station. Ethan Morales had worked the graveyard shift there for years. He actually liked it, the quiet, the isolation. No customers, no drama. Just him, his coffee, and the soft crackle of an old radio that barely picked up a signal. But that night, something different was waiting on the other side of the glass. Pause, soft, eerie tone. It was 2:03 a.m. when Ethan poured himself another cup of coffee. The wind outside howled through the gas pumps, kicking sand against the glass doors. He leaned on the counter, watching moths slam themselves against the flickering neon sign that read, "Open 24 hours." The only sound inside was the hum of the drink coolers, until headlights cut across the window. Car was pulling in. But not just any car. This one was pitch black, completely unmarked. No plates, no logos, just glossy paint reflecting the gas station lights. It rolled to a stop beside pump number 3, engine still running. Ethan waited, but no one got out. Music tightens, low rumble. He frowned, glancing at the clock, 2:11 a.m. Usually, truckers or travelers would step in immediately, stretch their legs, grab a coffee. But this car just sat there. The driver's side window was tinted so dark he couldn't see inside. He tried peering through the glass, nothing. Just the faintest shadow, like someone moving in the back seat. And then, another. 2, maybe 3 shapes shifting around. A chill crawled down his neck. He grabbed his flashlight and stepped outside, the bell above the door jingling softly behind him. The desert air hit his face. Dry, cold, silent. He took a few steps toward the car. "Hey there," he called out, forcing a chuckle. "You folks need gas or something?" No response. He tapped the hood lightly. The engine was still idling, but there was no driver. He leaned toward the windshield, trying to get a better look, when suddenly, from inside the station, ding, the doorbell. the sound that only rings when someone enters. Ethan froze. He turned around slowly, the door was swinging shut. But he was outside, and no one else should have been there. Music dips low, heartbeat tempo. He ran back inside, adrenaline spiking. The store was empty, shelves untouched. But something was wrong. The cash register was wide open. Receipts scattered. And then he noticed the security monitor behind the counter. There was someone standing right behind it on the screen. A figure, tall, motionless, blocking the view of the register. He spun around. No one was there. His hand trembled as he leaned closer to the monitor. That person looked like him. Same uniform, same haircut, same face. Except the footage wasn't from the past. The timestamp on the top corner said 2:17 a.m. That was 3 minutes from now. He watched as future Ethan stared toward the front door, eyes wide, mouth open, like he was about to scream. "What the hell?" he whispered. And then outside, click, click, the gas pumps turned on by themselves. Hoses swung slightly, metal nozzles clanging against the ground. Pump numbers flickered to life one by one. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ethan's radio crackled. Static first, then a faint voice came through. A child's voice. "Don't let them in this time." His stomach dropped. "What?" he whispered. But the voice repeated, clearer this time. "Don't let them in." He looked toward the monitors again. His future self was still there, frozen, staring toward the glass doors. And then, the black car's doors opened. All 4 of them, at once. But no one stepped out. He grabbed the nearest wrench from the supply cabinet, his pulse pounding in his ears. The desert wind outside stopped. No sound. Not even the hum of the lights. And that's when he noticed something on the glass, handprints. Small, oily smudges pressed against the front door, like someone or something was leaning from the other side. Then another set appeared, higher this time, and another, until the entire door was covered in black, greasy handprints that began to move down the glass, dragging like melting wax. Heartbeat sound builds. Ethan backed up, knocking over a display of chips. The radio screeched suddenly, high-pitched static, and over it, a whisper. "You let us in last time." Every light in the station went out. Total darkness. The only thing visible now was the glow of the monitors. On them, the feed showed Ethan standing perfectly still. But this time, his reflection smiled. He blinked, and the figure on screen lifted its hand, waving slowly. Loud static crash, and then silence. Music fades low. Morning ambient sound slowly builds. The next morning, around 7 a.m., a trucker pulled into the same gas station. He noticed the front doors were locked, but the lights were still on. He knocked a few times, no answer. Peering through the glass, he saw the counter empty, but a half-written logbook sitting open beside a spilled cup of coffee. The last line in Ethan's handwriting read, "They're walking toward the glass." The clock above it stopped at 2:17 a.m. The police found no trace of Ethan. No footprints. No car. Just 4 open gas pumps, each nozzle dripping like something had been recently filled. But the tanks were completely empty. A few months later, the station reopened under new ownership. Everything was replaced, new lights, new cameras, even a new sign. But every year, on the same night, at 2:17 a.m., the pumps still turn on by themselves. And if you listen closely, you can still hear that faint radio static. And a little voice whispering, "Don't let them in." Pause, eerie fade out. So before you move on, make sure you're subscribed, because the next story will make you think twice before working a night shift alone. Music ends. If you've ever worked a night shift somewhere old and forgotten, you know that kind of silence that feels alive, like the building's breathing with you. That's how Daniel Reed felt his first night at the textile mill. The factory had been shut down for decades. Old brick walls, broken windows, and the constant smell of oil and dust that never seemed to leave. They were renovating it now, turning it into some kind of warehouse. But for tonight, Daniel was alone. 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., the graveyard shift. His job was simple. Monitor the cameras, keep watch, make sure no one broke in. Before the manager left, he gave one warning. "Don't go near Section D," he said quietly. "That part of the building's unsafe. Power lines are unstable. Just keep clear." Daniel laughed it off. He'd been a guard for 15 years. Nothing surprised him anymore. He made coffee, sat down in the small control room lined with CCTV monitors, and listened to the hum of the generators outside. The screens flickered occasionally, old wiring probably. Still, the glow from the monitors made the room feel strangely comforting. Soft, low music, a steady rhythm like a heartbeat. Hours passed quietly. Midnight came and went. Then, around 2:00 a.m., one of the monitors started flickering. Camera 4, Section D. Daniel frowned. That area shouldn't even have power. But the feed cleared for a second, and that's when he saw it. A silhouette. Someone was walking slowly between the rusted looms and machinery. The outline was faint, moving with this eerie stiffness, like a puppet half-controlled by strings. He picked up the radio. "Control to crew. Anyone still on site?" Static. He tried again, nothing. Then he remembered. The renovation crew had clocked out at 8 p.m. He was the only one left in the entire building. Music deepens. He leaned closer to the screen. The figure was gone. He switched cameras, nothing. Switched again, and there it was, now closer. It stood near one of the support beams, head tilted slightly toward the camera. Daniel's skin prickled. He checked the timestamp, 1:58 a.m., then looked at the clock on the wall, 2:03. The feed was delayed by 5 minutes, which meant whatever he was seeing had already happened. He switched to another monitor, same figure again. Only now it was standing right in front of the camera, closer than before, like it was staring directly into the lens. The image glitched, distorting its head into static lines before cutting out completely. Daniel sat frozen, the hum of the monitors suddenly deafening. His heart thudded so loud he could hear it in his ears. Short pause. He tried to laugh it off. "Probably some worker left behind," he muttered. But deep down, something didn't feel right. He rubbed his eyes, checked the hallway camera outside the control room. Empty. Then on the far end of the corridor, a shadow passed by, slow, deliberate. And as it did, the monitor glitched again for half a second, showing not the hallway, but himself, sitting right where he was. Except his reflection on the screen wasn't moving. It just sat there, staring straight ahead. Music tightens. Daniel locked the door. His hand trembled slightly as he gripped his flashlight. "Okay," he whispered. "It's just old wiring. Just old footage looping." But then came the sound. Scrape. Metal against concrete. Right outside the control room door. He jumped, knocking over his coffee. The sound dragged slowly across the floor, like something heavy being pulled closer. He turned toward the monitors. Every camera feed had gone dark. Everyone, except one. Camera 7. The label read, "Control Room, Inside." Daniel froze. That camera was pointed directly at him. It wasn't supposed to be active. And on the feed, he could see himself, sitting in the chair. But there was someone else behind him. A tall, gray figure standing in the corner, motionless. Its face, or where a face should have been, was just smooth, blank skin. Daniel's breath hitched. He spun around, nothing there. When he looked back at the monitor, the figure was gone. He tried to radio for help again. Still dead. Then the lights in the control room flickered, one by one. His reflection on the screen tilted its head, just like he did. "Stop," he whispered. "Stop copying me." The reflection smiled, a slow, unnatural stretch. Daniel backed away, slamming into the wall. The screen filled with static. And then, darkness. Music fades to a hollow hum. Dawn ambience begins. When the backup guard arrived at 7 a.m., he found the control room empty. The lights were still on. The monitors glowed with soft static. Daniel's chair was slowly spinning in place. His jacket and flashlight were still there. Coffee spilled across the floor. cup cracked in half. They pulled the footage from the night before. Most of it was corrupted. But in one short clip, Daniel could be seen staring into the camera, whispering something. The audio was faint, but you could make out 2 words. "Don't watch it." The new guard sat there replaying it over and over, trying to figure out what he meant, until, for just a moment, one frame flickered differently. In that single frame, the faceless figure was staring right at him. Low static swell, faint echo of metal scraping. And now, some nights, the monitors still turn themselves on around 2 a.m. Always on the same camera. Always showing the control room. But there's no one sitting in the chair. Just the chair, spinning slowly. Pause. If you're still watching, maybe it's already watching you back. So before you click away, make sure you're subscribed because the next night shift you take might just be your last. Music fades out. End screen tone.